My name is Herb Lagois. I'm president of Lagois Design, Build, Renovate. And I established our company 30 years ago, so we're celebrating our 30th anniversary. My educational background is architecture, but when I first started the business, I started by framing homes and then slowly developed the architectural side of the business. And then over the years, we've developed a complete design and build company, so everything, all the entities are under one roof. And our specialties are renovations, additions, and custom homes. So that's what we do. So basically, this is the third part of the series. So on Friday, we talked a little bit about the right fit for you and your project, with whether it's an architect, designer, a builder, or a design build firm. We talked a little bit about the planning process and some of the things to consider. We also talked about how important taking the investment amount into consideration as part of the planning process. And yesterday we talked more about, so the first phase is basically going through the architectural design process. And then the second phase is filling in all the bits and pieces for the architectural design. So all the selections of the components, the interior design, so everything flows together. Things like once we get a kitchen in place, making sure at the end of the day that the fridge actually fits. And all this is to strive for a very successful construction project. So it's all about planning everything up front for the success of the project. Today we'll talk a little bit about what happens just before the actual construction starts. And there's obligations from a contractor perspective, from a homeowner perspective, and we'll talk about a little bit about how important communication is as well. So great, we go through the entire planning process. So we have the architectural designs, we know the furniture fits, we know that the space works, we know it looks really cool on the outside, it matches the existing conditions. We've picked out all the products, so we picked out the kitchens, the plumbing fixtures, the flooring. We know what's going in and what makes up the project. And then we also had our trades assess the existing conditions, so we know what we're getting into before we actually start the project. So the goal is, again, making the project successful, and success means on time, on budget. So can we start building? We have a set of plans, we have a design, we have all the specs that go into the project. Sure, we can start building. Slightly before that, though, we do need permits, so we need to go through the permit process. And great, we spent all this time up front going through the selection process, but how do you know that everything that we've talked about will end up going into your project? And then also we'll talk a little bit about the schedules, the importance of start dates and completion dates, and also insurance requirements. And a question we quite often have is, do we need to move out or not? Over the years with us from a design build perspective, what's really nice is we do have all the information that we've collected up front. So we've been through the design, we've been through the selections. So why not put it in writing if we have all this information? So the first step to be able to get a building permit is we do need a construction documentation, and part of that is what we call the working drawings. So our design has to be turned into a complete set of drawings. So the drawings basically are made up of the architectural component. So we have the architecture, that we know where the windows go, we know what it looks like, we know what it's going to be built out of. But then there's also there's engineering involved. So there's structural, there's geotechnical, there's mechanical engineering sometimes. So that all needs to be part of the process. Also, we have pre-engineered systems like roof trusses, for example. Now this is stick-built, but quite often they're pre-engineered. So floor systems or truss systems. So we need all that documentation for building permits. Also, we have to deal with applicable laws that we kind of touched on a little bit on yesterday, I believe. So things like septic systems, waterfront properties, EP zones or environmentally protected zones. We need the approvals from the particular bodies that govern that to be able to get the building permit as well. And then also HVAC design is important. So HVAC is heating, ventilation, air conditioning. So also we need to create a healthy housing environment. So if a house doesn't have the proper air exchange, then we have a chance of breathing in or too many toxins or it becomes polluted. So HVAC design is an important component of what we're doing as well. And especially because we're trying to strive for energy efficiency, houses are becoming more and more airtight. So then it becomes very important that we have the mechanical air exchange in a home as well. That's basically the information we need from a building permit perspective. Just a little piece of information, if you are demolishing something like a garage or detached garage, for example, apply for a demolition permit as well. From my understanding, it'll be reflected positively on your tax assessment. So keep that in mind or mention that to your builder or designer as well. So cool. We have the building permit, so definitely now we can start the construction. But how will you know that you're getting what we talked about? So critical is getting everything in writing. And also part of all that is what's the start date, what's the completion date, when do we move back in, for example. We need to have a construction contract. So a construction contract is made up of a legal component, of course, but there's a payment schedule, a start date, completion date. There's also specifications. It's all make up the actual documents. So important, again, I can't stress this enough, get it in writing. Know what you're getting for your money's worth. So I can easily say, we have this family room addition, cool. It's going to cost you $200,000 for this family room. You're going to get a really nice room. It's got some hardwood, it has windows. We're even going to put some heating in it. But what is indeed included in that? Is the basement finished? Is there a basement? If the basement's finished, to what degree? Is there flooring? Does finished mean it's just drywalled? If it's just drywalled, is it just the walls drywalled or is the ceiling? So again, it's critical to understand exactly what you are getting. Things like even exterior for adding an addition. So there's questions about who's going to remove the existing deck. What about the landscaping? Oh, there's a fence in the way. Who takes care of that? And don't leave the questions unanswered. Just ask the question. It has to be clear. The last thing we want is a conversation on site when we get there and go, well, your fence is in the way. Well, no, you thought I was moving it. So it needs to be dealt with before. Ask questions. And certainly as professionals, it's also our obligation to help you understand and make informed decisions. First off, start dates and completion dates in a construction contract. It's a very reasonable expectation. It has to be there. How can you not know when you're moving back in, for example? So can't stress that enough. Payment schedules. Also understanding when payments are due. Typically, most construction contracts should be made up of a deposit, there's milestone payments and there's different configurations of that. And also as part of that there's a 10% holdback as part of the Construction Lien Act. It's there for our protection as consumers. And it's important to hold back that amount just in case there's a default by the contractor. Then you have some resources to go back to pay any bills that the contractor may not have paid. Of course, do your research for your builder up front and make sure you're not going to run into those problems, but it is there for your protection. And no, a deposit is not 100% down. So, and be very cautious of very high deposits. A rule of thumb is 10% of the construction value, but again, that's a rule of thumb, so it can be all over the map. Just be very cautious if somebody's asking for a very high deposit. So there's probably a reason, and is this individual or company trying to fund losses for a project that was done before you? Also, specifications. It needs to be very clear what you're getting for your money's worth. If we have put a spec in the contract, asphalt shingles, great. What does that mean? Asphalt shingles is a 25-year warranty, is it 30, is a lifetime warranty, is there eave protection? If so, what is the eave protection? Is it 3 feet, is it 6 feet, what's the product? Is there underlayment underneath the shingles? Building code minimums don't require underlayment, but best practices do. So understand, again, what you're getting. And ask the questions. Don't be afraid to ask the question. If anything, it's important to clear the air up front. Contract allowances. We use allowances when something isn't clear, or perhaps if something isn't chosen up front. So let's use kitchen cabinetry for an example. So if we use an allowance for $25,000 for cabinetry, and we start the construction project, and okay, great, go out and shop for your kitchen cabinets. So we're underway, everything's being built, and then you go out to the kitchen company and you come back and go, yeah, we found some really cool cabinets. They only cost $100,000. So we're 3 times over what our allowance was. Now, if you're really good, maybe you got them for a lot less. But so it's also managing the potential cost overruns during the construction. So I can't stress the importance enough of selecting things up front. And for us, actually, we will not start a project until things are selected in the timelines we need them selected, because it's only fair to you and fair to us as well to have a project that's on budget, on time. So, and also the danger is if we go shopping during construction, let's say for kitchen cabinets, what happens if we don't meet the order time? So all of a sudden the kitchen is a week late coming in. Then what have we done with all our trades, the rest of the cycles of the project? So then all of a sudden we've blown our completion date on the project. So again, that all started with contract allowances. So there are allowances that we do use. For example, like excavation is an example of how do we know what's underground. So if it's like a clay condition, great, it's fairly straightforward, but what if there's bedrock or a buried septic system or something? So we do use allowances if there's unknowns. The trick is to keep those to a minimum. And then also professionals with experience will know what to allocate for allowances as well. So the bottom line with allowances is keep them to a minimum. If you have a whole page of allowances in your contract, question why and try to minimize those, because the more allowances, the more risk of cost overruns, and also more risk of having the project go off schedule as well. So ask the question, don't be afraid to ask, why do you have this allowance? Why can't you make that a fixed amount, for example? Also, something to be aware of is, as homeowners, if we take on the construction, then under the eyes of the law, we become the constructor. And that applies if you do one little portion of the project. So if you take care of the painting, for example, or whatever, then under the eyes of the law, you become the constructor. So the catch or the challenge with that is, if you do the painting, probably it's not that big of a deal, but if you're doing your entire project and doing all your contracting, then it does become very serious. And the Ministry of Labor, or basically we have to register a project if it's $50,000 of value and above with the Ministry of Labor, and that's tied in with the building permits, so there's a cross-reference. And the building inspectors do come, or the safety inspectors, Ministry of Labor inspectors come on site, which to me is a good thing, but then you have to have a safe site as well, and there's a huge list of obligations to deal with. Also, warranty. Warranty should be part of the construction contract. So it's one thing for me to say, we have a 5-year warranty. Cool. But make sure it's in writing as well. So what happens if it's not in writing? Then what's your recourse? So ask the question when you're interviewing builders, just ask them what their warranty is all about and what's included with it as well. So cool, we have a contract that's made up of a start date, completion date, payment schedule, there's warranty, and a complete set of specifications. Now we need to also deal with insurance. So first off, as homeowners, we need to have insurance coverage, and it's becoming stricter over the years as well. So it's sometimes known as renovation insurance. So definitely talk to your broker about that. So as a builder, we can't insure somebody else's property. So we as builders have liability insurance, and definitely ask proof of insurance, so that's important as well. Make sure your builder has proof of insurance, because if insurance is kind of a trickle up effect. So if we have a subcontractor of a subcontractor who's hired then by us, so if the sub of a sub doesn't have insurance, the subcontractor doesn't have insurance, we don't have insurance, guess who's liable? So it's important to have insurance from a builder's perspective, but ask for proof of insurance as well. So the renovation insurance from a homeowner's perspective is, an example I always use is, if we have some windows delivered to the site and they're stolen, if they're just delivered and stolen, then our insurance would cover it. But if they're nailed in place and then stolen, then the homeowner's insurance kicks in. So key with insurance is also insuring for the value you're investing into the property. So you can, at the beginning of the project, it's not a really big deal, but when the project starts to become close to 90% complete, then most of your investment's already made into the property. So key is having the proper amount of insurance. So from a builder's perspective, so we do have our liabilities and liability insurance, but there's also additional insurance. So we need to be registered by the Ministry of, or WSIB. And then also it's our obligation to ask for clearance certificates from all the trades. We cannot have illegal workers on construction sites. So all the sub-trades, the workers have to be covered by WSIB. And just this year, in January, I believe it came into law that now every single sub-trade has to have WSIB coverage as well, which has not been the case in the past. So it's important to get those clearance certificates. And also what's really important for what I hope to believe for most professional builders is to also ask for proof of insurance from all their sub-trades. Because the last thing we want to do is be accountable for certain things that happens that's caused by somebody else. Talked about the trickle-up effect. If nobody has insurance, then us as homeowners would be liable. And that's where cash becomes a real challenge, or the underground economy. So if we're paying somebody under the table, what are actually the odds of somebody having insurance coverage as well? So just be cognizant of that. If somebody falls off your roof that you've just paid cash for, guess who's liable? We talked about start dates and completion dates. So it's one thing to have a start date in the contract, another thing to have a completion date, cool. But what about the actual schedule of the project? So it's also reasonable to ask your builder for a detailed schedule. Things like, when do you actually move out? So often we can start a project and you don't have to move out right away. Or delivering appliances, for example. Sometimes our clients take care of appliances, so we have to have a specific delivery date of those appliances. So again, it's very reasonable to ask for a schedule of the project. And also, I would question the ability of a builder if they can't provide that, because it's all about being on budget, on time. And to be on time, we have to have a schedule for the project. Moving out. So, of course, my answer is yes. End of discussion. You have to move out. Yet, we've had clients. One client in particular, actually, he operated his business out of his house, and we affected every single opening to his house. So we excavated front entrance, side entrance, rear entrance. Yet we had to keep his business functioning, and we did that by building bridges. He had clients coming in and out as we were pouring foundations and stuff, and it was a neat experience. So we can do it, but just be aware that renovations are disruptive. There's ongoing noise during the course of construction, and also kitchen rentals are sometimes a challenge, because once we take your existing kitchen out, then the kitchen's kind of the hub of your life. So what do? We've had one particular client that actually they camped in the basement. It was a family of 4. The roof came off and everything, and they loved every second of it. A, I wouldn't encourage it, and B, most people wouldn't enjoy doing that kind of thing. Again, just be aware that renovations can be disruptive to your everyday living. Also be aware that things do, depending on the nature of the renovation, things can rattle and move as well. So be aware of paintings on walls or china and china cabinets. So just that little vibration can also create damage. So be aware of that as well. Communication. I think that, to me, that's the basis almost of everything. To be able to communicate. For me, there has to be a relationship with us, you, and the project, and making sure there is a good fit. And if there's anything that ever bothers you in the process, let it be known. Communication is critical. Don't let something fester and eat up. It's not worth it. And also, as professionals, we're human. We do make mistakes. It's just, for me, I welcome those as opportunities and learning opportunities. The trick is not to make repeat mistakes. So again, communication is critical. There's certainly an opportunity to help us improve in what we're doing. And also, you are investing a considerable amount of time and energy into the project, and of course money as well. So communication is important. So in closing, there's awesome companies, there's awesome individuals, whether it's architects, whether it's designers, whether it's builders, whether it's companies like ours where everything's under one roof, like a design build company. It's just the project has to fit. It has to meet your needs. So in closing, do your homework, ask questions, find the right fit that works for you. And the right fit is focuses on the overall quality, yet also focus on the overall success of the project as well. So that's right from the architectural component to all the selections, to the contract documentation, to the actual construction, to the actual warranty after the project is done. And number one advice, two number one advices, so have fun with the process. You are achieving your dreams. And also, secondly, don't rush for the sake of rushing. Take your time, think it through, make sure you are making the right decisions. Hopefully that was beneficial. I know there's a couple of people joined us for all three presentations, so thank you very much. So hopefully there was a little bit of value that came out of that, and I'll open up the floor for any questions.
On behalf of myself and everyone at Canning, thank you very much for the last week. It's very informative, very good.
Thank you.
And I do have a question.
Oh no.
So how would you deal with change during the construction process?
Great question. First off, I don't encourage changes during construction. There's different types of changes as well. But so first off, because we're trying to plan everything as much as possible, so we're discouraging changes throughout the entire process. Yet, if we end up on site and we see something really cool and, that'll look nice, blah, 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 great, let's do it. Or is there an unknown that we hit in the project? Like, we open up a wall and there's a rat's nest of wires that we have to deal with, and that's a cost issue, a timing issue. And a cost issue could be negative and positive, so depending on what the nature of the change is. So first off, changes have to be in writing. So it has to be understood what the change is, what the change is going to cost, whether it's a credit or an increase in cost. Know what that is up front. Don't wait until the project's over and then go, oh yeah, by the way, you owe us about $50,000 more because of blah, 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 blah. So you have to have a running tally of extras throughout the entire project. So get it in writing, and then also changes have timing connected to it. Some changes don't, some do. So what happens if we do run into an issue with a lot of wiring where it takes a week more to fix it? Then it's also important to understand that we've just potentially added a week to the overall schedule of the project. And that's huge, because you have to understand, if you're moving back into the project, you're renting something somewhere, how do we deal with it? And sure, maybe we can make up timelines, but maybe we can't. So it's important to know and understand up front during the entire process. And then it's a great discussion at the end of the project. But I'd like to leave with friendship. It's and not on a bitter note. And it's, if we have a discussion over finances, then it may or may not be sour. So have a clear understanding throughout, and then right from, because it's very exciting at the beginning when we do the designs. Make sure it's exciting when we end the project as well, and goes, this is really cool. We love it. So great question. Lengthy answer.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Talk about having a 10% deposit down to start something. Is it possible if a contractor asks you for paying for materials as an attachment along the side, you can take your 10% deposit and something else?
So the question was, does the 10% deposit include things like for a builder to purchase materials, etc., for the project? Usually, actually, I wasn't too clear on the payment schedule. So the payment schedule is usually typically made up of a deposit. So we use deposits for things like order items, So we have to order pre-engineered systems like trusses and like windows, for example. So that's what our deposit is all about. And then a contract should have, or the payment schedule should have milestone payments as well. So that there's a certain amount of work done, and it's very clear that when this is done, we pay X number of dollars. And as opposed to, because if we pay for materials out of the deposit, let's say, then we're asking for probably too high of a deposit to make the cash flow work. So.
Everyone says it takes longer, it's going to cost you more money renovation. Is there a percentage or a ballpark figure? How much more do I decide once I get my home or my building?
So the question was, we all expect cost overruns and time overruns with projects. Our policy is actually a 2% cost overrun, and actually on time is our policy. It's a week overrun is acceptable to me, but nothing more. Be aware though that there's changes during a job, there might be weather conditions, there might be an order thing. So it's communication that also needs to be in writing throughout the entire process. But that's why I'm stressing all the planning up front to make the construction itself successful. Because if we just jump into it, then yes, we'll hear the typical stories, oh, it was way over budget and it was way over time. So, thank you. Great question. Anybody else? So thank you so much for coming out. Enjoy the show. Certainly feel free to email me if you have any questions that you think of afterwards. Just feel free to email as well. Enjoy the show. There's certainly a lot of information in this building. So thank you so much for coming out.